Hello, buddies! You're going to hear now about the Middle Age. Woo! There were several elements that influenced the literature. I'm gonna mention some of its main characteristics. What would you think the first one would be? Yeah, it would be chivalry. This deals with knights and their code of honor, which included being of service, being honest, and helping those less fortunate. Another characteristic would be magic, of course. This came in many forms, especially in what we would consider today as the supernatural. And the last but not least would be love. And now I'm gonna tell you some of the important works of the Middle Age. One super important would be El Cantar de Mio Cid. It was written in the mid-12th century, roughly between 1140 and 1157. It was based on a real person, Rodrigo Díaz de Vivar, who lived from 1043 to 1099. The poem recounts the adventures of Díaz de Vivar, El Cid, the quintessential gentleman of the time. It is believed that the historical backgrounds of several episodes of the poem are real, while others are known to be invented. Another important work would be the Song of the Nibelungs. It is called the German Iliad. And another one would be the Song of Roland. But this one is very interesting. It has 4,002 verses, distributed in small stanzas, of course, but it is believed to be inspired by an event suffered by the army of Charles Magnon at 15 August from 778 in a gorge of Roncesvalles, where the nephew of Charles Magnon, Roland, died. But that's basically it. That's all I can mention, all the important things. Thanks for listening.
Alright, so now we're gonna talk about the epic genre. But first of all, what does the word epic means? The word epic is derived from the ancient Greek adjective epikos, which means a poetic story. In literature, an epic is a long narrative poem which is usually related to heroic deeds of a person, of an unusual courage, and a huge amount of bravery. The epic narrative is its focus on the exploits of a hero or demigod who represents the cultural values of a race, nation, or religious group. This basically means that it's based on a person, thing, or demigod who has heroic acts in the story. Most of the time, the hero has to sacrifice something and make difficult decisions. So, therefore, the main character will be the hero and everything he's willing to do to save the day. Another characteristic can be that the hero's success or failure will determine the fate of the people or nation. Most of the time, the action takes place in a vast setting and covers a wide geographic area. And the setting is frequently sometime in the remote past. The action contains superhuman feats or strength or military progress. Gods or supernatural beings frequently take part in the action to affect the outcome. With this, I mean like the things that I said before, that there are difficult situations, problems, the hero is in some type of struggle and he has to deal with it, or sometimes there are like villains. A great example can be the Odyssey, and well, this was written in the 9th century by Homer. It is a classic, and it basically talks about the coming back of Ulysses, which is the Odyssey, from the War of Troy, and this he has this wife and his son, and they are like waiting for him to come home, where he was the king of that place. So in the voyage, in the trip that he's making to get back home, there are like a lot of problems. So he has to deal with them all the time. And as he was in the trip, the wife had like a lot of suitors. So when he comes back, he still has to fight with the suitors of his wife, who at the end recognize him. So he takes back the possession of the kingdom and of his home. But he has like a lot of problems and struggles, and he has to fight, and he's really brave. So that's why it's a great example of the epic genre. With it, or sometimes there are like billions. A great example can be the Odyssey, and well, this was written in the 9th century by Homer. It is a classic, and it basically talks about the coming back of Ulysses, which is the Odyssey, from the War of Troy, and this he has this wife and his son, and they are like waiting for him to come home, where he was the king of that place. So in the voyage, in the trip that he's making to get back home, there are like a lot of problems. So he has to deal with them all the time. And as he was in the trip, the wife had like a lot of suitors. So when he comes back, he still has to fight with the suitors of his wife, who at the end recognize him. So he takes back the possession of the kingdom and of his home. But he has like a lot of problems and struggles, and he has to fight, and he's really brave. So that's why it's a great example of the epic genre.
Now I'm going to talk to you about the Renaissance. This was a very important period between the 1300 and 1600, in which a lot of thinkers and artists started to focus on the human being instead of religion. First, in the Dark Ages or Middle Ages, religion was really important, and it was all the focus of all forms of art and expression. But on the Renaissance, a lot of writers started to write real stories about real people. There were a lot of changes on the way of writing on this period. An example would be the introduction of the tragic genre, in which the main characters didn't always have a good ending, and sometimes they couldn't find a solution to their problems. Also, many kinds of narrators and characters were introduced to these theaters or to these novels. The different kinds of narrators were the protagonist, secondary character, omniscient, and second person. And there were different characters as the main, secondary, incidental, environmental, static, dynamic, round, and playing characters. Some important writers on this period were William Shakespeare, Nicolas Machiavelli, Dante Alighieri, and Geoffrey Chaucer. And a lot of memorable and important pieces were wrote during this period, mainly by the author William Shakespeare, like Hamlet, Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, but also there were other important novels such as The Prince or Canterbury Tales.
So, the epopee is a subgenre in which the adventures of a hero are told in a poetic narrative way. Like in a way, like if it was a poem. It's also sometimes divided in verses, and it's not necessary for it to come in a poem way. Some examples of these are the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Ramayana, and the Odyssey. Some of the characteristics is that it also includes like legends and sometimes history. Finally, we have the Golden Age. This rose up in 1547 when the Spanish Empire was falling apart, the weather was very bad. People had epidemics. They were immigrating to America to have new opportunities, and they wanted to be more powerful. We have 3 different sections to divide this. First of them is literature. The most emphasized people that were here are Miguel de Cervantes and Shakespeare. Miguel de Cervantes wrote El Quijote de la Mancha in 1605, but he was born on 1547. Then on theater, we have Lope de Vega. He was born in Madrid in 1562. He was very known for creating the new comedy in Spain, and he also made very easy for others to do theater. And then we have poetry. This is very strange because it's called like culturalismo, but it's also known as gongorismo because of Luis Góngora, and he is the great. He did many references to mythology and comparisons. At the same time, he was doing very difficult poetry to understand, but to understand it, the ones who wanted to read it, they had to consult other articles, other poems. That was sort of the idea of it. So this is everything. Thank you so much for listening to this. Hope you liked it. Bye.